Welcome. Today we have something unique on the new episode of Smart Tech this week. We are talking a little bit entertainment and in regards to animations. Majority of you are fans of movies. Actually, you've watched quite a lot of movies and mainly Hollywood related movies. You look at all those visual effects that are put into the movie scenes. That's the power of animations. And of course, not only the movie scenes, but also animations being the movies themselves. In Uganda, the animation industry is growing at quite a large space, and quite so many players are coming into the game trying to develop into the world of animations. And this time around, we are looking at the technology behind animations. We've had 2D technology, 3D technology, but this time around, we are going to look at the evolution of both technologies. But first of all, we're going to have a demonstration of the 3D technology in regards to animation. Andrew Barige, your host. I'll be right back. Over the years, animations produced in form of TV commercials, movies, and many others have evolved. We have had them in different formats such as 2D, but over the years, this technology has improved to 3D. So on the program, we shall be interested in the demonstration of the 3D technology in the latest animation series and movies produced, and also reviewing the evolution of the 2D technology. Alex Musisi over the years has invested in research in regards to animation tech to enhance development, but in particular to make local stories.
Computer animation in Uganda has remained largely a mystery because the tech is not something you often talk about on the street. So a lot of people don't know about it. They want to study it. A lot of youth want to study it because of the opportunities it presents, but they don't know much about it. And we see movies on TV, on Netflix, and or online, like on YouTube. But we have become complacent. We just watch content in Uganda. We don't so much look into how it's produced. So we talk about movies, how clean they are, how good they are. We know a few stations which have these programs where they talk about the latest movies and everything, but actually how it is made, most people don't talk about this. So just like where they have cameras and lights and all these kind of gizmos they use to make movies, like live footage movies, so animation also has own tech. And most of it is software, most of it is computer-based. It's what we want to talk about today and explain. So when you receive an animation, or when you see an animation TV, or when you see an animation film, there's a process. By average, an animation film, like a pure animation film, like maybe people know things like Coco, people know things like Toy Story and things like that. When you look at those movies, normally whether it's Disney or DreamWorks, they will take about 3 years making that film. And in those 3 years, you are counting about 200 to 300 animators who are working every day, 365 days a year to produce that in 3 years. Sometimes it takes even more. You might finish a movie, maybe you reach like in the middle of the timeline, and you realize the movie has a problem. Then they go again, or they invest another maybe 2 years. So some movies take up to 4 or 5 years to produce. So as you watch it on TV, it kind of gives you a different perspective when you learn about the tech behind it, because then you realize how much goes on behind the screen. So today we want to give you a glimpse of what happens behind producing animation. So animation, as much as part of the creative industry, it's also film. It's categorized under film, because film, or what you call movies, are moving pictures. They just shorten it into a slang of movies, but actually what they mean is moving pictures. So if you're creating moving pictures, it's as long as something is moving on screen, it is a film. Whether it's graphics, whether it's animation, whether it's VFX, whether it is an engineering explainer, it is movies. It's movies. So that animation, it is created from a starting point to where you see the final product, basically. And as we have explained before, still on this program, there are 3 types of animation which are common in Uganda. It is 3D animation, 2D animation, and motion graphics. So me personally, I'm going to be explaining about 3D computer animation. So when we get a project in Cartoon Mentor or any other studio, when a project is gotten or by an individual animator, usually a client, which could be himself producing a personal project, or it could be somebody who's hiring him, we call those producers. The person who owns the project and finds money to fund it is called a producer. So when you are hired by a producer to make something, or we call a client, to make an animation or a clip or a commercial, an advert, or a movie, a short film, so the whole process begins with an idea. So there's a vision. What do you want to tell a story? Somebody might be wanting to tell a story of maybe this orphan boy who went to school and learned engineering and then made a windmill. You know, it could be that. It could be a story of maybe about a family. You know, just the way you see in Disney movies, everything begins with a storyline, with an idea. So that idea goes through a number of stages, depending on whether it's meant for cinema or it's meant for TV, and how big it is. If it's a full movie, a feature film, it will take longer to develop that script. If it's a series, it will take up to maybe about a year in development. If it's a script for an advert, you might take a week or 3 days seated with the writers. So on the pipeline, you find that there are several people starting with the writers. So when somebody brings an idea, that's the first stage. We have an idea. The next stage, we have writing a script. A script is the organized format of an idea. So an idea is vague. It's just things which are not clear here and there. You know, you throw an idea there, you brainstorm here. But a script kind of takes and attaches certain professional elements, certain production elements to that idea. Things like the layout, the date of the time, whether it's night or day, whether the day was windy or it was a calm summer day. So it's that kind of putting the whole idea in context. So you have to work with a team of script writers. So we have an idea, then we have script writers as stage number 2. So now this process is common to all the other 3 types of animation, but the only thing which differs is maybe the software and the tech. Slightly it differs. There are also animation softwares, but they kind of differ from place to place. Now, we do not create the script from the same software which creates the characters and the environment. No, that is a different script, and you can actually work with a movie writer, a movie script writer to animate, to create a script for animation. Though script writers for animation are also people who are specialized in that field, because scripts for animation are slightly a little bit different from movie scripts. They require a different kind of approach. So after the script has been put together and the whole idea is working together, so a script could look something like this. A script could look something like this. So it is not rough. It is not rough. It is somebody has meticulously explained in detail what the characters are going to be doing, where they are at the time, you know. So they describe the scenes, the time of the day, how the characters are behaving. Now this is a script. You have gotten the idea, and now the idea, you are kind of attaching meaning to it. So if there's compositions where we're going to need an orchestra, music, this is where all of it is kind of described. Now, after all of this is described, then we go to concept drawings. Concept drawings can be drawings of characters, how characters are going to look like, if they're going to be old men, they're going to be children. So sometimes if a project's big, you can draw up to over 30 concepts. And these are usually drawn by artists who are not maybe necessarily animators, but artists, and you can work with any kind of artist. And then we start maybe painting backgrounds where you can work with people who do painting, like artists. Those guys who paint like on canvas. You can work with those people, and from here you can start designing costumes. There's also costumes in animation. It's not only for movie sets. In animation, there's also costumes. There are people who are specialized in that, and we have special software actually which also designs that. So we start talking about the costumes, how, if it's going to be African, if we're going to go back in time, and we have these people have to wear like cavemen. If maybe characters have to be hairy, they have to be a certain way. You have seen movies like Crude. From the past, so the characters have to be a certain way. So we design all of it at concept level. So after the concepts have been developed, in the meantime, the voice actors are auditioning, and we are choosing voices for the characters. Now this applies both for the short films, adverts, and the movies. It's just that depending on the size of the project, each will take longer or shorter period of time, but the process is the same most of the time. So the voice actors, they take this script to the studio. After we have auditioned, we choose who best fits what character. So the characters have been drawn. The voice actors knows how the characters look like and what they're going to say. So from this script, they start they read it through the script properly, and then they start voicing in a studio. So they record sound. Now, unlike the movies unlike maybe theater or the movies where they have to cram the script, here they don't have to cram the script per se, because they are not going to be filmed themselves on screen. So there's a leeway there for them. So it's not as tedious as when you're going to act on stage or you're going to act in front of a screen. These guys, we don't require them to be on screen, so they can read the scripts, but they have to voice act it, as in they have to act. That's why it's called voice acting, not just acting. So they have to act it, and so that they can bring out the highs and the lows, the character. If the character is angry, or if he's mischievous, or if he's a naughty character, you have to be in character, because people can feel that in your voice. So they have to be specially trained for this. In Uganda, all of these areas are still not that well serviced. So we have comedians, we have people who do commercial adverts where you say, buy this, buy that. That is not necessarily the in and outs of voice acting. So voice acting sometimes would require you to be a little more like you're acting for stage. And when you voice act for a movie, you'll come and tell me that it's a bit different from voice acting for Akalango. So it's some slightly different, because there is expressionism. Like expressionism is so much in there. So this script, so as we are drawing the concepts and moving on to the next stage, they've also, some stages start running parallel. For example, we'll be in the studio recording the voices and acting. At the same time, the concept artists are drawing the concepts and the storyboards. Now, when the voice and the storyboards are brought together, then we create something called an animatic. An animatic is a combination of the concepts and the voice. And it's usually a rough video of the final work. It kind of shows how everything is going to flow. So it's rough, but it kind of gives you where it's going to go. And still, artists have to sit down with drawing tablets and monitors, and they draw this idea out. But based off the script, so this is the visual format of the script combined. So we can't have sound now, but actually there's sound in this. So what they recorded in the studio plus what I've drawn out of the script, then we have it. Now, after this stage, the artists now start creating, because now I'm explaining 3D. Now the artists start creating a 3D environment. Now a 3D environment will be slightly different from this, because for it is kind of photorealistic. I think I have something here. It's photorealistic. it kind of tends to look like this. So it's photorealistic, so it will require 3D programs are special programs. They create objects in 3 dimension. So when you look at this particular scene we created for one of our projects, we find that it has a certain dimension to it. It's cartoony, but it has a certain dimension to it. Now, all of these you see in here, we call them assets, and they are created from scratch, one by one. So they start modeling using a 3D program. So this gives the storyline flow. The animatic gives us a storyline flow, but after the animatic has been created, then we start creating the assets. And in those assets, we also start creating things like the characters. Now, this is how a character would look like. Now, the characters are also considered assets, but they are one of the most complex assets. So environments, cars, and everything, those are a bit easier to create. What really takes time to create are the characters, how the characters are going to look like. Now, because this is a humanoid version of a living person. It's a humanoid version of a living person. It has details. There are so many details on this. There is a mesh. This, as you can see, this is a 3D program, and this mesh has to be modeled. You know, this mesh has to be modeled. It has to be sculpted virtually, and people spend time studying these things. Personally, I took about 1 to 3 years actually training in this from one of the local companies in Uganda, and I had to learn at work basically, because this normally does not fit well within a teaching curriculum like at a university where you have to study a bit of theory, do coursework and everything. You won't study this very well. So normally universities work with private companies to actually come in and provide what we call work integrated learning. So work integrated learning, we are teaching these students about the ins and outs of this kind of work. So the process for creating this character is the same process you use to create maybe a soccer ball, a car, a chair, and all those things. But it takes a bit of time because this is a system. There's a system for this character to be made into a usable character, which is going to be on screen and is talking. It's a system of different things which come together. So when we are creating assets and characters, we start by creating meshes, virtual sculpting, which actually people have to train to learn to do. So and you can specialize in it from wherever you choose to study from. Then after the mesh has been created, so you can see the concept in this, the artist drew this character and it was supposed to be a grandma. So it is a story about this family, and they talk about health and nutrition. Actually, this is one of the characters from the Sinza series, the one which won an award for us in the recently concluded Uganda Film Festival, organized by Uganda Communications Commission. So we emerged as the winners. Cartoon Mentor won the best animation film of the year in the category of animation. So this was one of the characters we had to create, and we had to create this mesh. Somebody had to virtual sculpt this mesh, so you have to model this dress. You have to do research about a gomesi. So gomesis normally have those pointed shoulders here, but by design, our costume designer sat with the engineers who are kind of designing this, or the artists, and we figured, let's not go for the pointed bits. So they had a technical issue, so we kind of left them out. So that's what you discuss with the costume designer and the engineers. So kind of applied engineering, a sort of thing. So where the artists sit with, where a costume designer has to sit with the programmers. Yeah. So as this is happening, you have to know what the character is going to need. So he's supposed to have this is called a sash, oba ekitambala or ekitambi in some of the local languages. So we had to work through that. The gomesi, you see it has the textures on it in there. Somebody has to sit down and paint those. You have to work out the eyes, the eyebrows. We have to work through the head covering, and the proportions have to be right. So this program is able to measure most of that stuff. So after the meshes have been created, as we are creating these characters, other team members are creating so many other assets. If we're going to need cars, if we are going to need instruments, a phone, a telephone, all the things, they are being created in the same process. But these characters, because they're going to be the ones, the avatars which are going to be speaking on screen, we take them a step further, then we take them through a process called rigging. After modeling and virtual sculpting, we rig them. Actually, shortly before we rig them, they have to be painted. So this character, if I open a particular space here, you will notice that mesh you see here, this mesh, when you click on it, there's a particular sub portion of this program called Autodesk Maya which lays it out. Now these, we take pictures of them and send them to another artist who's called a surface painter. A surface painter is the guy who paints the character, all the pimples and the details and the beard, if a character has a beard, and the hair. So they take it to Photoshop. Photoshop is a very well common known program, but it's used for so many things. Most people use it to edit pictures, but actually we use it for so many things. So we take it there and it will be like this. Let me maximize this. It will be like this. Then they can paint, so you can see the painting is in there, you can see the cheeks are here. So it's kind of laid out just like when you skin a goat. When they skin a goat or a cow, then they lay out its hide. So it's called UV unwrapping in these 3D programs. So you see, the whole skin of this lady is laid out in this program, and then the artist can paint over it, and that's where they paint in. Even the things you see in VFX, those future movies like Iron Man, that suit is painted. The Lord of the Rings and other things. You see this guy has a lot of tattoos or maybe things like that. It's painted here at this stage. It's called surface painting or surfacing. So when we map them back, then you can tell this lady maybe applied, he has the cheeks here. We can paint on lipstick if you want to, and we paint in the textures for the head scarf, and then this dress, the gomesi has all the details like that. Then after that, we rig. Now, rigging is the way of creating a puppet so that the animators can control the characters to create movement. So it has bones, like it mimics the bones like a human character, like a human, because the human body has bones. It's how you're able to move around, and has a muscle system. So this character has that also. Let me just turn it on here. So these are bones. You see that purplish lining there. So you can actually even touch it. So these bones are created into the system where you see through the feet, they are in there. We don't use them as we're animating, but they are the one controlling this face. So this fresh, this geometry is now attached to this fresh, and you can start controlling a character depending. So after the bones are drawn in, then you can add on another layer where you put controls, because we are trying to create a puppet. We are trying to create a puppet. So these controls are attached to the bone system. So the fresh is attached to the bones. Then these other controls are attached to the to the bones. Now those bones, it is what the artist uses to move the character. Now the voices have been recorded already. We have the storyline and the animatic. Now the animators, after they have this character tested out, for example, let me show you. So this is called a facial rig. We have the feet control, even the sash or Htambala has controls. The feet have controls. All of, the knees and everything, the fingers, they all have controls and they work. So let's start with this head. So this head, it can turn. See that? These eyes, I think these are the eyes. Both eyes. Let me select both eyes. So you see, They can move. It's called a facial control. So now this character is now a puppet and has been created through the process of rigging. This is all what we go through. Then we have the eyebrows here. So you can make her angry. She can be maybe, or she can be surprised. You know, and then you can maybe move. So you see that? So you can kind of express anything. So you have the mouth. This mouth can talk. See that? So if she can be maybe talking in any language, it doesn't matter the language, it will be able to do that. So we have the cheeks. You can control the cheeks, a bit of that. You know, there's a lot of controls here. Then one which controls the smile, you know. So the artists can play with a lot of the things until when they have their facial expression. So the most time-consuming stage is the next stage after this, where the characters are being animated. So let's look at this arm. If I can use this, so you see you can bend that. Let me first switch off this bond so that you can see it better. So you see his fingers? I can actually control a lot of them. So is that? The feet, the same thing. This sash, it can be moved around, so don't think it's something wrong with it. It's not. So you have a waist. So if she's going to dance, maybe in a local dance, so we can control just about anything. And when people are training, they learn all these processes. So after the characters have been created, we go to the next stage, which is computer and which is animation. So the assets have been created. We have the environments. We have laid the scenes. We have created the layout. So layout is this. So you know how they look for scenes in the movies, and then they are shooting, like they kind of cooking, you know. So let this one load. So the animation is the most time-consuming portion of any animation. So after the character has been rigged properly, then we kind of stage it. Now these are some of the props that we are creating earlier. They, you know, alongside the characters, the knife. This is Lumonde, so she was preparing Lumonde. Now, we pose the character in position. It's called scene layout, and this scene here will go into this environment here. So she's going to be seated around here, eventually. Now, we have something called a timeline here. There's something called a timeline. Now, this timeline here is where you actually create the animation. Let me increase its size so that you can see. So this timeline here is where you create the animation. So if I touched one of these controls, you find it has red marks. See those red marks? Let me try to look for something else. So those red marks, it's animation, and each of them is a pose. So you kind of do, because we say that animation is a series of images. They are movies, moving pictures. So that's how we create them. So each stick, each bar you see on screen here represents an image, and the artist has to kind of create them. In 2D, they draw them one by one, but in 3D, you pose the character while the computer registers that information. So it registers that information as a red mark on this timeline. So if I go here, the character kind of moves a bit. If I go to the next one, it moves a bit again. It moves a bit again. So I did that manually one by one, so that when I play back, let me reduce this a bit. So when I play back, so the idea is, the art director will tell me, I want this lady to be peeling Lumonde, you know, as you know. So I create that movement. I come up with poses which kind of create that. I have to study the dynamics and acting. So when I create several of those red marks, which we call poses, even on the face. So she's slightly smiling. She's seated very well, like any other Muganda lady. These are, the setup and everything. So after I've set up several information points here and there, then the animation will kind of feel like that. So you see that? So when we are working, of course, these artifacts are happening, but you don't see them in the final because we shall clean that up. So this happens behind the screens. Don't mind that. It happens all the time. So after the animation is done, because a lot of animation will be going on, because a lot of things are happening at the same time, like different things are happening. Let me show you something here. So different things are happening in the animation. So a lot of animation has to be created shot by shot. You see how they shoot a movie, they shoot one place, they shoot another place, then they add the movie together. So the same thing happens. So the other picture you saw, now we have added a camera to it. It's moving. This picture. Now, when somebody sees this on screen, of course, they can't tell it is just this setup. Because we cleverly position the camera so that we can film over it like that. And this is grandma, and this is grandpa. So they are put together, the car, the dust, all of it is created and put together. So remember where the grandma was? So now, we're introducing other characters. So all this happens. So after the animation is done, we go into a process called rendering. Rendering is the process of getting this information here. This information, getting it and transforming it into pictures. Because the computer, for it reads it in binary. It reads it in a script language. Most of the information you have seen is basically this. So these 3D programs are self-coding. As you're recording, it's recording. Now, we need to get this information, these zeros and ones you are seeing, and turn them into pictures that your brain can interpret, because most of it this looks like nonsense, looks like just random numbers and letters. So as I'm creating all of this, the computer is programming and keeping all that information. These red marks are all denoted into these scripts. So this script has to be turned into images. Now, that's where we do lighting. So these programs you see here, they are very powerful. They are like mini studios, very powerful virtual studios. So you can set a camera. They have their own virtual cameras. If I go to rendering, so I can create a camera here. So you see that camera? I've just created this camera here. So this camera, see this camera? This camera is the same camera as the one they are using to capture this program. It has the same aspects. So the gentleman behind the camera, I know he has some of these controls: angle of view, focal length, and all the things. So these programs actually have those cameras. So I can load my camera here, and I put a film gate over it like that. It even has setups and aspect ratio. If I have an environment, I'll kind of want to put my grandma somewhere where I can see them. I even have safe title and everything that a physical camera has. These cameras have them. They are that powerful. So I can increase my focal length and or reduce it so that it has a certain effect to there are so many other controls. These cameras are very, very powerful. So I can put it there and then I film. That's how we end up with this sort of thing. So you see we are moving from shot to shot, from there to another shot. Then we change camera, then another shot. You see those cuts which are happening on screen, then another cut, then another cut. All those we film them. So we do actual filming also in these programs, in these applications. So after all of this is done, we need to render it out into this final. So each of these small points will be rendered out as a single image. I don't have those images close by here, but actually I think then we shall show them as we go on. So we render them out into single images, and then they are taken to a composting program, which is the final stage of production, a composting program. So along that, there's always, you're making changes, corrections as the client desires. Then there are lights. This program has lights. There are spotlights. They mimic actual lights in the environment. Like the same lights which you use in a studio, these programs have them. So we set up a real studio lighting and like this character, like when you're going to a photo shoot, we do the same thing here. And then we render it out, all that information into pictures. Those pictures are added in a program, a composting program like maybe After Effects. And then a clip comes out so that you can watch it as a final product. So you see this lamp here, the way it has effect on the whole surrounding and environment, that is called lighting. There are artists who specialize in that. These, the bed, the carpet, and everything around, the bananas, the setup, the purpose, all the things, somebody has to create them, and then they are created. So as they're animating, the other people are doing the sunlight, the lighting. So all of it is rendered out finally, so that it can be put together into a moving clip as a picture, so that the client can take it and maybe show it on TV or show it in cinema. Basically, that's how 3D computer animation is created.
Welcome back from the 3D experience. Yes, and this time around we are going to look at the 2D experience. Yes, 2D is the old version of animations, but still 2D has been evolving over the years. Back in the days, they used to just draw pieces of cartoons, probably pieces of pictures, and you could draw quite a number of them. But this time around, with the introduction of the digital drawing boards, the experience has been made a little bit easier and much more friendly. Jay Joseph is an expert, is an animation director. He's going to demonstrate for us how the 2D technology has evolved in Uganda.
When we talk about 2D animation, basically this is the father of all animation. When animation started, it was started as series of images, because like all other forms of animation, when you're creating animation, the whole basis of the animation is to create a sequence of images that can be played through a sequence to create the illusion of movement. And that is technically what all these other softwares and technicalities of animation are. Same as 3D, motion graphics, 2D, the whole essence is just to create a sequence of images. How the images are created is now how the softwares calculate how the images will be done, plus the tools you use. Now in 2D, because animation is a sequence of images, in 2D animation, traditionally, what we call traditional animation, we used to draw images on paper, pages, one image after another. And once we create 24 of those images, that would roughly estimate to about a second in film. It is a technical term that we usually use in animation when we say 24 frames per second. Just like in videography where they say 30 frames per second, it's 24.5 frames per second. So in animation, our timing is based on 24 frames per second. So that would mean traditionally someone would have to draw 24 images to create the illusion of movement within 1 second. If I was going to create a character, a cartoon character that walks from point A to point B, I would have to draw 24 images. As his left leg comes in, then he shifts his weight, moves his right leg, then his left. So each image creates a sequence. And but with technology, 2D evolved. Now we have drawing tablets like this one. This is a drawing display. It's basically a monitor, but just a pricey monitor because it has pressure sensitivity and it comes with its own pen. So this pen helps you draw directly onto the screen. So once this plugs into any other computer, it's an additional monitor, but also has the additional benefit of it being a drawing instrument. So you draw directly into animation softwares like Toon Boom, Photoshop, Illustrator, TV Paint. So when we talk about the animation softwares now, basically every animation software, as long as it has what we call a timeline, it can be used to animate. A timeline is that tool within the software that will tell you at what frame rate you are at. So at every frame, you just have to draw a separate image. So once a sequence of these images is designed, colored, and then exported, that sequence then becomes an animation. But traditionally, yes, that is how we do 2D animation. You basically draw each and every frame. But with time, of course, it is very rare to have a team of animators that all have the same level of draftsmanship. Not everyone will draw at the same level. And when you're animating, you have to draw the same character over and over again. The character is turning around, the character is running, different camera angles, different character designs. So because we couldn't have a number of people with the same level of skills, we decided animation evolved to what we call puppet animation. This is specifically for 2D animation. So the concept of puppet animation, it's still 2D, but it works like a 3D model. While in 3D they have someone who will design the character and the character will be animated. We also have a character that can be designed in 2D, painted once, colored once, and then drawn the different angles, and then they put in a rigging system similar to the one they use in 3D. Now that rigging system within the 2D system is what the animator will use to move the puppet around without actually having to draw each and every frame. So that ensures that you have more people that can animate on the same project. And not only that, it makes the process a lot faster because drawing is very hard. I mean, drawing is quicker if it's rough sketches, like in storyboarding. Drawing 3, 5, 6 images is much easier than actually having to invest all the time to model and do everything. So for storyboarding, it's faster, you get to lay down your ideas much faster. But when it comes to animation, then drawing each and every frame to perfection will take a lot longer. So that's why 2D animation developed into what we call the puppet animation, where we have people that can rig the character, draw the character, do the character designs, and then you have a separate animation team that animates the characters without actually having to draw each and every character.
Jay demonstrates how this works on a digital drawing board.
We are in the 2D animation software called Toon Boom. Like I said earlier, here we have our timeline, here we have our camera view, here we have our tool properties that control the properties whichever tool you're using. So I will say animate a character. That is probably looking screen right. So each drawing I'm essentially creating is what we call a frame or a drawing in 2D animation, while in 3D softwares they do call these keys, because without them drawing they set keys which we call keyframes that create the illusion of movement. So I'm trying to create a head turn of this character as it turns around in space. So I keep my fingers on the keyboard because I want to keep moving back and forth so that I can feel the movement of the character. Usually when animation is starting out, we try to keep the drawings as rough as possible because we are looking for movement, we are looking for rhythm and appeal. So but there are always technical animators that come in to clean the animation after, clean up artists, we call them in-betweeners. So all those terms refer to people that clean the animation once the first animation pass is done. But with cutout animation, this process has been now eliminated because the character is done once, and because it's drawn once, there is no need for cleanup all the time. So I'm trying to animate a character that is looking this side, looks to this side, gets surprised, and then puts his hands up. Probably there's a thief or a policeman off screen that says, "Hey, freeze, put your hands up." So with the traditional animation a couple of years ago, this was not possible on a computer because technology wasn't there. So each and every frame or each and every drawing had to be drawn on paper. Okay. So I'm now trying to figure out, the expression and the ending of the animation, because what I've been doing now is the key drawings, the key poses, the images that are going to define the animation that I am doing now. So because in animation we have two methods of animating. You can decide to go straight ahead. That is where you just draw the way I am doing right now. You just feel the rhythm, feel the flow, and just animate straight ahead. Then we also have what we call the pose to pose. Now pose to pose will involve me first ironing out all my key poses, all my drawings that I need, and then lay down all those poses and then figure out the drawings that will go in between each drawing. So that would be pose to pose animation, where you go from pose to pose, while in a straight ahead you just go with the flow. Go from one drawing to the next until you feel the movement of your character. And each one of those has its own individual advantages. Like pose to pose will give you characters that are stiffer and they don't look that good, but at least it's controlled animation because you know exactly where each frame is going to go, where each limb or each body part of the character is going to go. But when it comes to straight ahead is more fluid, but the problem with it is it's very hard to keep note of your it's very hard for you to keep note of your movement, and then your character starts losing shape. It looks bigger, it looks smaller in certain angles. So what I'm doing right now is what we call an in-between drawing, because I have a key pose here and then I have another one here, but from where the character moves from this shocked pose to this pose where he puts up the hands, there's something missing. I mean, because the hands just snap there. So what I'm going to do is what we call a breakdown drawing. Breakdown drawing is essentially a drawing that is between two drawings. So what it does, it defines the arc of the movement. Okay, and this is what we usually call the onion skin. Now the onion skin just helps me see my previous drawing and my next drawing. So when I switch on my onion skin, I can see the previous drawing and the next drawing, where the previous drawing is the one in red, then the middle one is the breakdown that I'm trying to do, then the one in green is the next drawing. So I'll probably put this hand around here. So I'm trying to create an arc, because in animation we have the principles of animation, and one of the principles of animation is arcs, because most movement happens within arcs, and it's very important to keep the basics of the animations intact when you're doing the animation, because it adds the realism and the appeal to the animation. Because doing animation without the basics is just essentially you're doing movement but not animation, because animation is supposed to have a bit of rhythm and a sense of acting to it. So animation without basics is just movement, just motion, whereas animation is the illusion of movement. It involves a lot of things that make an animation look good, and some of those things is the basics, the fundamentals of animation. So this is my in-between, my breakdown drawing. I can probably make his eyes close a bit, because when they close and then open, it kind of makes the eye opening pop, which has a nice appeal to it. So here I need to take the proper measure of my arms, because I'm losing the elbows. So if you look at the previous drawing, the next drawing the elbow is around here. So in my next drawing the elbow should be around here, because you need to keep the fluidity in the animation so that things don't look like they're popping out of place. Give him the collar of the shirt. Okay, let me take that out because it's interfering with the facial expression. Of course, this is just, the very rough animation. This could even be passed on as a storyboard, just to show a client, a producer, the director, how you intend the character to move. It's very fast. And when you're working in a production pipeline, this helps a lot with the director, because you don't commit to so many acting choices at this point, and in case the director has something to tell you, it's very easy to change this. Maybe you can talk to the director, and the director might be like, no, I don't like this guy's hand, the way it pops up. Could you maybe delay it a bit? So because you haven't committed too much to the drawing, it's very easy for you to just essentially change this, following guidelines from the director's notes, and then submitting it back again. So that's how storyboards help, because apart from helping you design and plan your animation and stuff, they actually help you take care of director's notes, producer's notes, even notes from clients. beginning to take shape. Because now here I'm just scrolling back and forth, just trying to have a look at my drawings, make sure the animation is making sense. Alright, so a couple of more drawings in between here, and it will have a bit more smoother animation. Onion skin. So because I can see the previous drawing and the next drawing, it gives me leeway and leverage to know exactly where the next drawing is going to be. So I can do the nose, and when I scroll through, you can see the nose is roughly within the same position it's supposed to be. That is because of the onion skin. Same as the eyes. At this point you can't really dwell so much on the details, because this is the first pass of animation. You're probably going to do a bit more on this, around 3 or 4 more passes to get it to what we call a final look. Yes. And at this point I'm not even thinking about my volumes. I mean like the size of the ear, because I can see this ear is this big. Here it slightly grows, but it's standing in space, same as the screen left ear, this one. So you can feel the head turning around. You can feel the head turning around. And you can do the torso. Kind of drag this hand behind. That drag will give weight to the hand, because things that have weight usually drag. They don't move like paper. So, and that's also another, it's not really a principle, but it's one of the fundamentals that give weight to your characters. Alright, so let's now, with more drawings, more in-betweens, and then better timing, this actually now looks like what the final animation would look like. Just the timing. There. Okay, yeah, so that's it.
And of course, that was the 2D experience. And now we are going into the last stage of animations. Yes, of course, you've seen Alex demonstrate, you've seen Jay Joseph demonstrate, but of course, when they make their pieces, finally they forward them to the final person. And that final person is the motion graphics editor. Let's take a look at the motion graphics. This involves effects. Yes.
The motion designer is at the end of the production, or is at the end of the pipeline. So motion design and the compositing, and then the visual effects and other things like that come in where the animators are done, and then the rendering is done, and then the assets or the renders are brought to me to add them together and composite the whole thing for you to see like a full film. Yeah. So like you see in this small project I have here, there is a dragon here in this composition. It's spitting some fire, yeah, and you can see like the background is empty. So this is how the animation comes in. It comes in without a background when they are done rendering. Or if it has a background, I can add other effects on top of the animation. So inside this composition, you can see I added like a rainbow thing in the background, and then like some bit of color. So this is like the whole. This is like a small overview of what happens behind the scenes. Yeah. So you can see these are small things here called keyframes. Yeah. So the effects are animated, of course, like you see this fire here. It is animated and it has a few keyframes on it, and then also the dragon. Now this one is like 2D animation. So the dragon also has keyframes of its own right here, and then it is combed together as a final piece and then rendered out as a video. So this can be used as an advert or a piece of digital arts. Currently they are called like NFTs. Yeah, so even this is currently on sale. So you can go on the platform and buy it. Yeah, so that is basically the whole pipeline and how it works. Yeah, so my job is not as I would say it's also a complicated job, but of course like specialization and other things. But like you see, everyone here has his own capacity and what they do. Yeah.
Ever since motion graphics first entered the scene, there has been a debate about the line between them and the full animation. They are a way to communicate with the viewer and add depth to the story. Together with the music and effective copy, they can give us a message. They are used to create ads, title sequences for movies, and many others. The global 3D animation market size was valued at $18.39 billion in 2021 and is anticipated to expand at a compound annual growth rate of 12.1% from 2022 to 2030. Uganda as a nation is making strides to have a global market share. I guess you can see that it's very possible to manipulate anything when it comes to computer-generated images. I used to wonder back in the days when I used to watch movies that how can these people literally make an environment? Definitely, I used to think some of them are made up buildings, perhaps they destroy, but I've come to realize it's the power of the computer-generated images. And I guess you saw the technology behind the 3D and 2D. And when I talk about computer-generated images, of course, the lay term or the lay pronunciation is the animations, definitely. And that's what we had for you this week on Smart Tech. Andrew Barigi, goodbye.